Welcome to TAO-Living, the Art of Living podcast with your host, Luke Corletto, where you will be supported to remember that you are the driver and not the vehicle so that you can walk your life in trust. Welcome back to the TAO-Living podcast, the Art of Living. My next guest speaker, Dr. Sukhi Muker, is an award-winning wellness doctor, author, and global speaker. With over 20 years of experience in clinical practice and a decade in mentoring wellness professionals across the globe, his work bridges neuroscience, cell biology, and quantum physics as it relates to health, healing, and actualizing human potential. Dr. Sukhi's mission is to increase the consciousness of humanity and bring more peace, authenticity, and love to this world. He teaches others to rewire their nerve system, activate their inner wisdom, and recode their bodies and minds for lifelong vitality and growth. Ladies and gentlemen, I am really stoked to have my next guest here, Dr. Sukhi Muker. When Sukhi and I, how long, 25, 30, how many years ago did we first meet? I'm just now,
Oh boy.
It's been a
Yeah.
long time.
I'm going to say the first time we met was probably 1999, 2000. That's my guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, when I first saw this guy walking around, just watching him move through space and time, I'm like, this is guy. I want to connect with this guy. Who is this guy? And then we got to connect, and I got to hear some of his backstory, how he grew up, the environment that he grew up in, and then who he had become at that point. And this is, 30 years ago then, and who he is now. Like, this is multiple lifetimes in the same lifetime. Truly, brother, to watch
Thank
the
you.
evolution of who you be is really a beautiful thing to witness, and definitely a teaching tool for me and of course others, because of the tribe that you love and serve. Yeah. So thank you for being here, man. It's been a great reconnect.
Right.
And so, as you heard in the intro, ladies and gentlemen, this man he's a product of his own teachings, right? So having the practice, being the ultra athlete, what he puts his system through, but we were just talking about that before we went live.
Yeah.
In order to play at that level, you got to go within. There's no way. You just can't do it, right? And so I loved share that description. I love that description you shared with your wife, which was about the process of basically I'm becoming monkish in my
Yes.
training, right?
It is, it's a lot of people when you embark on this process of saying, hey, I want to, do this challenge, this opportunity, some of the most challenging quote unquote races in the world. I never race against anyone else. It's an opportunity for me to extract the intelligence that I am through me. It requires mind, it requires body, but most importantly, a connection to spirit and that wholeness and that life force that animates my atoms, molecules, cells, and tissues. And it really is a life, as I was saying, if I go for a run in the mountains for 3, 4, 5 hours, I go for a ride cycling, or I'm in the ocean swimming. It's me, myself, and I. It is truly the life of a monk in solitude. And the funny thing is, when I hit rock bottom and was starting to come out of that, I actually thought, when I was opened up very early in my late teens to these ideas and concepts of wholeness, of connection, of spirit and meditation, I was like, I want to become a monk. And actually, when I was in India, this elder was like, well, you're actually not meant to become a monk. You're meant to go back to your world and dispense these teachings. And with all due respect, I mean, I was like 19 years old, high school dropout, delinquent. I'm thinking, this dude has no idea who I am. Like, go back and be a teacher. No one's going to listen to me. And here I am now. So we go, and that's like, how many, that's like, that was exactly like 32 years ago. I'm turning 50 this year, 32 years ago. And, here I am, as I said, married to my soulmate, my wife, Kate, who we've been together for 16 years. We have beautiful daughters, 9 and 6 years old, Indira and OCN. And it's like, it's not being selfish, because when I get the opportunity every single day, and I'm an early riser without an alarm, I get up like clockwork, 4:30 a.m. I also go to bed early, so I get quality sleep, but I'm up at 4:30 a.m. It's my time. My family typically doesn't get up till 7, 8 in the morning. So I get to go through my entire routine. And for me, I'm a better Suki. I'm
Mm,
a better human being. I'm a better husband to my wife, Kate. I'm a better father to my two daughters. And for me, that is the greatest gift I
mm,
can give my family.
mm,
And that spills into, as you know, Lou, every part of our universe, who we are as people that serve, as docs, as friends, as, you know, everything, every facet of our life. It's, for me, it's a lot less about what you're doing. It's who you're being
mm,
while you're doing
mm,
what you're doing. Like someone will say, "Oh, that endurance sports stuff, that's really not that good for you." Or, that breath work and meditation, are you into that stuff? And I'm like, well, it's who I'm being while I'm doing those things. And understanding, like, my world I've really dove into was understanding, neuroscience, cell biology, but most importantly, quantum physics. How do I hardwire my entire perceptual lens of reality to be the conscious creator of what I want to see more of in this world?
mm, mm,
And like, to live my mission. And ultimately, my mission is to bring more love, more connection into this world.
mm.
And that, because once you bring that and people can experience that in their heart and their being, nothing else matters. It's all surface stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So this is well, yeah, we can unpack stuff for just months and months. You and I just playing and coming from this, so many of the same places. So for the listening audience, a couple things I would like to point out just in that moment of Suki sharing is that's what works for him. What works for you to do to activate to be that best part of you, right? So whatever that is, but create that space for you, right? Because that
Mm,
place of, oh well, this takes up too mine, then I'm being selfish for my family. No, 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 you're not, right? Your family's going, no, please go do it, right?
yeah,
Please go do that
totally.
thing because you are a bet, right?
Yeah.
And so whatever that is for you, and then commit to it, right? Make it sacred time because it allows you to be you, right? And that's huge. So one, identify what that is. Two, then get to it, right? Get to it,
Absolutely.
and then
Get
make it
to it.
sacred time. Make it
Yeah.
sacred time, so nothing else gets to disturb from that. Um,
Hmm.
as something Suki and I were talking about before we went live. Um, Recently, I just did this little challenge to myself to go, okay, hold on a second. Let's really like simplify all the teachings for me, like in my own work, and going, okay, just one day at a time. And then I realized that was even too long. What do I give away my inner peace to? Like just that simple question throughout the day. So it wasn't a question. It was like practically, right? Walk my day and see what I bump into that I have eventually trade my inner peace for, right? Whatever, the person that cuts me off on the highway and I feel my physiology shift. I just
Right.
traded my inner peace. Why did I make that decision? Why did I, right? So what am I triggering? That means there's still stuff in my system that isn't that's not aligned with me, right? The essence of
Right.
love, right? And
Yes.
so just that place of going, where am I trading? Because there's nothing worth my inner peace.
Right.
Nothing
Nothing.
until I trade it, right?
Yes.
So there's a difference between the constructs that everybody's listening to that right? So we all know this, but how much of are we applying? Like really applying, and at what level?
Right.
And so that beautiful piece that Suki was sharing was this, this monkness of going within, right? Um, and so we all have that. Are we applying it though, right? Are we really taking that initiative to do it? Uh,
Right.
I remember the first couple times that I was put in positions to having to transcend the physical body.
Mm.
Some of them were, many of them in healing crises for sure. One of them was way back decades ago on a mission where we were serving so many people. My body was collapsing. And it was like, yeah, but it's not time. There's too many people to serve. There's no time to collapse.
Yeah.
And I could barely use my body. I'm like, so there was that transcendent. All of a sudden I found another space, right? Like
Right.
I'm gathering you guys do on a regular basis at these runs. So
Yes.
how do we find that next part of ourselves that transcends our physicality, right?
Right.
Yeah, definitely in breath work. And there's so many tools out there that we can all use to
Mhm.
put us in these positions to keep discovering who we be, right?
Right.
Who we be.
Absolutely. And the piece that I'd add to that, thanks for that, Lou, is we have fallen into a world where I feel at least people want to intellectualize and understand. And it's cool to do that. Do your research, do your due diligence. But in the end, it is through the experience and engaging it. I'll give you a really simple example. People who know me and know that, I've been an ultra endurance athlete now for a decade and a half ish. And they'll say, okay, Sukhi, I want to do a triathlon or I want to do a 10K race. What should I do? And here's my advice: buy a pair of shorts if you don't have any, get a t-shirt and some socks and some runners, and go for a run for 15 to 20 minutes every day. Do that 4 or 5 days a week. Give me a call after 3 months, then we'll talk. That's it. And you know what? 95% of them don't call me.
Right.
5% of them, okay, I did that. Oh, you did? Okay. Because right away, they're coming to me like, I need a training plan. I need a I'm like, no. You just need to start running. You just need to get out of your house and start moving your body. And if you can do that, guess what? Things are going to emerge.
Right.
You're going to go to a running store, and guess what? You might run into a running group there, et cetera, et cetera. It's like we have to engage in this thing called life and give, our nervous system, our biology, our consciousness, the opportunity to experience. And then once we do that, that's when the growth, the evolution, the increase in our subatomic matrix and consciousness, and, as you and I talk about in physics, like tapping into the field of what's possible, let's collapse these waves into particles of reality and we start moving there. It doesn't come through thinking. It doesn't come through intellectualizing. Like I can sit at home and look at a program of breath work, meditation, or training all day, every day. But that's not going to move me even a millimeter. But the moment I start engaging in that, the moment I close my eyes, I deepen my breath, I connect in, I have a seat, like you said, I'm giving away that peace, I'm giving away that presence. You stop, you take a step back, you reconnect, because that's a sign of disconnection. The moment you do that versus like, oh yeah, I listened to Lou on that podcast, I see I'm giving it away, I need to reconnect. And yeah, maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Right. So it's engaging in that. It's we I us humanity, we overcomplicate life.
Right. Right.
It's not that difficult. It's actually remarkably simple. Let's not confuse simple with being easy.
Right.
It's simple.
Right.
And as we engage, it gets easier in terms of that. Yeah, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
add
They're
that
not
piece.
removing effort from the process, but the process is easy, right? Yeah,
Yes.
and I because I've done it way too many times, but definitely working with so many people of the complication is simply the distractions and the resistance. The disconnect
Yes.
between I want and desire and the true willingness to get engaged, right?
Right.
Like, hey man, if you really want to do this, quit thinking, just light yourself on fire and jump off the fucking cliff, right? Let's
Yes.
just get to it. And on the way
Yes.
down, you'll start figuring some stuff out, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. What Suki was just saying was, uh, life can't course correct you when you're sitting on your ass. there's nothing moving, right? There's nothing to course correct. So in motion is where then life starts to present next opportunities. Well, but what happens next? We'll start moving and you'll find out. Something will appear. Like you just said, the person, the thing, it will keep appearing, but only
Yes.
if we have momentum going, right? Because it's also, for me, years ago when I started that process was the gift of life was as soon as I committed, proportional to the commitment as well, right? So as soon as I like, yes, I'm going to do this thing, right away I know it's going, really, really, like really.
Yeah.
Let's see how serious you. So for those who are listening and not seeing this, I'm putting my hand up. Like there's this resistance, meaning I am now through life attracting a level of resistance,
Yeah.
obstacles, challenges to go. Do we have a player, or are you just a talker? So
Yes.
initially there are these bumps to go, oh man, oh, right, it's getting harder. There's challenges, there's stuff. But as long as I
Yeah.
stay true to the course, that stuff stops and then it comes behind me as providence and keeps now putting wind into my
Absolutely.
sails,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. And it's like,
And most people quit in the midst of the obstacles, right? It's like, no,
yeah,
no, your journey just started, man.
it just started.
Right?
And the piece I'll share with that is it's actually like it's a law of thermodynamics. It says every force will be opposed with an equal and opposite force. You know this. So the moment we make this commitment, all of a sudden these layers of energetic resistance emerge, and that'll be brought to us. And as far as I can see, looking back over the past 5 decades, I believe we are here to grow, evolve, expand awareness and consciousness.
Mm,
That's what I know.
mm,
For me, that means the universe is never going to give us a challenge that we can't integrate, that we can't process, that we can't transcend. And the universe is only going to bring to us that in which we haven't healed within ourselves. So we have the opportunity, but we have to play in this field, in this 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional reality, in this world, beginning to moving through that, because that is how we evolve. That is how we grow. It's like, yeah, like if I go for a 5-hour bike ride, it's, after 3 hours, it's like, oh man, like I'm digging deep here. Like
mhm,
I'm finding parts of myself every time that I didn't know existed. And then I'm taking those new parts that I've become at whole and at peace with into every facet of my life. And that deep connection that I get to cultivate through that, through the inside out, through that inner journey, begins to allow new frequencies to emerge within me, which creates new opportunities for the world around me, which is dancing in this very fabric of life, which is the sandbox we all get to create because we are always consciously co-creating. Many think it's subconsciously, but it's like, well, no, because like so many of us are stuck in the stress, the trauma, the challenges of the past or future projecting into the future. And you understand this, Lou, when it comes to the nervous system, your perception of reality. Yet, when we come right here into this moment, that's where the juice of life is.
mm,
And for me, my where I am in my life today is if I can just start to string together a series of this moments, oh, that was a great day.
mhm,
Like that's where I am in my
mm,
evolution. It's like,
mm,
man, if I can just, not bring my trauma of the past,
mm,
not doom and gloom the future, but just be right here, right now, in this moment that is pure perfection. And then to the next moment and to the
mm.
next moment. I mean, that's where I am within myself. And I'll say it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, that works on paper really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, on that, as you do with breath, right? So this is the thing for me, from off table working with that to when I started years ago,
Mm,
taking people out on retreats with wild dolphins. So
right.
connecting with the cetaceans and having the greatest, well, so many, but one of the greatest gifts. So cetaceans, not to you, whales and to listening audience, right? So whales,
Yeah.
dolphins, the entire conscious sentient beings,
Yes.
they are only conscious breathers. They don't have the capacity to go involuntary. So human beings have this capacity of involuntary breath, or conscious and unconscious breath. Unfortunately, most people, as I did in the early part of my life, are just being breathed, because
Mm,
I relied only on the involuntary respiration, what I call a biological breath, that thing that keeps me on the planet.
right.
Yet there's this new other place of actually consciously participation in breath, right? And so learning from, I should say, the cetaceans. So that's right. They have to choose every breath or they
Yes.
die,
Yeah.
which keeps them in the moment, right?
Yeah.
They do live in the moment, every moment, right? It's like, oh, right? So hence the
Yeah.
joy and the bliss, because they don't get caught in the mind stuff.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I never connected those two pieces. That's awesome. I love that.
yeah, so to the point when they sleep, they literally have to keep half of the brain on in order to keep breathing, right?
Right.
And so that gift for me of going, okay, how am I behaving not that way? Oh,
Right.
because by not conscious breathing, then I stay, as you were just describing, in the past or the future, rarely ever right here,
Yeah.
right? Somewhere else, past or future, right?
Yeah.
Well, great, but neither one exists.
Right.
Right? So how do I stay here? So that greatest gift of, oh, my breath brings me and keeps me right
Yeah.
here. Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
And that gift for people to remember, right? That life happens for us, not to us.
Life happens for us. It absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some pieces that you like your core pillars
Mm.
that you'd like to share with the listening audience, in the sense of, hey, like I do this often, like, hey, if I can only interact with somebody in a short period of time, what are the couple nuggets that I'd say, if you play with this, right? If you apply this to
Right.
your life, boom, right?
Yeah. So, for me, the biggest thing is the intelligence and life force that flows through our nervous system. And, with you, Lou, I know I'm speaking to the choir, but for me, it truly is. And there's been an embracing and embodiment of this over the last 3 decades, the greatest technology on the planet. It is the greatest technology on the planet. It creates tens and thousands of new cells every day. It does computing technology beyond any man. We still can't create a single cell in a petri dish. Best minds that have ever walked the face of the planet, put them in a lab, we can't do it. So my biggest nugget is, are you cultivating and nurturing the expression of your life force,
Mm,
of your intelligence? And obviously that's articulated to people in different value system, but what are you doing? People are constantly looking out there for a problem in here. The problem in here is caused by an opportunity in here. And that opportunity, because life is happening for us, is the cultivation and nurturance of the greater expression of who we are.
mm,
That's healing, that's cell regeneration, that's an expansion of awareness, that is more energy, vitality, quality of life. I mean, the list goes on and on. And then from that, so for me, that begins by creating high levels of coherence within our nervous system. And when we start to do that, that's when we can shift our sensory experience to be beyond. See, most people's sensory experience is they got this amygdala, fight or flight. Where is the saber-toothed tiger waiting to attack me? What's wrong? The cup is empty, etc., etc. That is living less than our present environment. Some people will live equal to, and equal to is still looking for what's wrong because there's a saber-toothed tiger out there waiting to pounce on us. So for me, when we start that process and journey of cultivating and nurturing that, we then can start to live beyond
mm,
our sensory experience. We
mm.
start to tap in what physics calls the unified field and create this life for ourselves and this reality. As I said, every day I'm looking for opportunities for more love and more connection in everything. What does that look like for me? It can be subtle. I could be out for a run on the seawall at 5:30 a.m. and that love and connection piece is waving and saying good morning to the old lady by herself. Actually, I'll share a story with that. I used to run a certain route years ago down the seawall pathway, and there was at a very specific time. I went there at 5:30 a.m. and there was an older lady that always walked it. And I waved at her. She waved back. She was a little resistant. Then I said, "Hi, good morning." I'm like, "Hey, how's your day going?" Every day I would see her over a series of years. Then one day, I don't know what happened, but I think I had to tie my shoelace or something like this, and it was very close to where she was, and I engage in more of a conversation as opposed to just running by her. And what emerged through that conversation, Lou, was she said, "Thank you for always connecting with me every morning.
Mm,
Some days you're the only person I get to connect with because
mm,
I live alone."
mm,
It's like we never know. And for me, I'm like, oh my goodness.
mm.
So again, by cultivating that, I'm just looking for love and connection in my ecosystem, in my world, however we do that. So that would be my primary nugget.
Yeah, that's delicious. And so, ladies and gentlemen, just because, as Suki well knows, and I get, because he and I both have experiences too much traveling the world, teaching, loving people up. Um, that story could have also played out differently. That if there's a movie decades ago called Sliding Doors, right? They did this parallel
Mm,
universe kind of thing. And
mm,
so let's say he's just running, but he doesn't take that act of just, hey, I acknowledge you, like good morning. And because of where he's at, he sees this beautiful woman as a beautiful woman, as a beautiful being woman, not nothing beyond that. But he doesn't do that. He just runs because he's focused on running and doesn't acknowledge her and just does his thing. She's walking the seawall and living a life of loneliness. She's starting to focus on jumping off the seawall into the sea to end this because of the heaviness and the misery of life being disconnected from life. In
mm.
this quote unquote simple act of some stranger walking by, running by in this case, hey, I see you, without saying those words, every day, reminding you are a beautiful, loving being, right? To the point where she's now, thank you, and she might not even be aware, but it kept her on the planet.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, listening audience, oftentimes, if you look at the world and how bonkers it's gotten, like, oh, what can I do? A
Mm.
lot,
A
right?
lot, a
A
lot,
lot,
a
a
lot.
lot. And that lot is just like this. It's the paradox. That lot
Mm.
usually starts with little
Yeah.
because little is profound, right? So don't get caught up with lot means big, but profound. And profound can start with the most basic,
Most basic
the
thing.
simplicity, right? I coined a term years ago, Simplexity, right?
Yeah.
How do I take complex things and make them simple?
And like a simple act, like what, because people will rebuttal with that. And I'm like, you know what you can do? You can pick up your phone, think of somebody who you know that's in
Mm,
your ecosystem, and text them, "Hey, I just want to thank you for being in my life
mm,
and let you know I appreciate you."
mm.
Heart. It's going to take you 15 seconds. But when you do that, I promise you, you and that other person is going to feel a little bit different.
Aho, aho. And so here's that piece is why don't we do that, right? So in 2 weeks I have an event called Design Your Life by Design, right? And we go through the core domains of life. And one of them when we dive into relationship is where are we holding back? And then why are we holding back? Right. And the answer is always hurt, pain, fear, some bullshit. Right.
Yeah.
And so how do we choose simply start to set ourselves free? That's a powerful act right there, ladies and gentlemen, is start to open again, to take that quote unquote risk to be alive, to be open, to be loved. Oh, but if I do that, I'm going to get hurt. No, you're not. You'll have different tools, right? Suki can show you some. I can show you some. There's different tools to engage you with, with the ones we didn't think we had as we grew up, Um, But yeah, what if, like, let's hallucinate for a moment. And what if we stopped holding back in our relationships for
Mm,
fear of getting hurt, right? What if we
yeah.
just had the courage to show up
Mm,
fully alive, fully open, going, here is me, right?
mm.
What if?
What
Wow.
if?
What
Yeah.
if? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so
And
let's not ask that. Like, let's not keep wondering the question. Let's be, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And looking at life in terms from a place of one of the cultivations for me is to look at life being curious, but curious in awe,
Mm,
curious
mm,
in astonishment,
mm.
not curious trying to figure it out, but curious in, going out. The other day, I was out by the water here. I live close to the water, and I was seeing the waves crash on rocks. And I was watching the ripples that would form in the little pools of water between the rocks. And every ripple, as waves came in of the same size, were symmetrical. And I was just like, that is just so beautiful. And I sat there for like 20 minutes just watching this one little area where waves were crashing over a big rock, creating this little pool and just being in astonishment.
Yeah.
And I can't even begin to tell you what synaptic, neurological, cellular, endocrine changes that's making in my system. It's like that there is a meditation because it's
Mm,
present
mm,
time
mm,
consciousness.
mm,
I'm just being so acutely present in that moment. And we have autonomy over this. We as humans, all of you have autonomy over this.
mm,
It's like what you have control of is actually, despite what you may believe, is where your attention goes, your energy and consciousness flows. So let's start being a sacred gatekeeper of our attention,
mm,
of our energy, and seeing where that goes. Let's start to see the people, the places, the things in our life with curiosity, with some awe, with some astonishment. Like, wow, you showed up. Like, wow, after 30 years, we're still married. And maybe things aren't roses, but I appreciate you. And maybe today we can move forward with a new step, a
mm,
new direction.
mm.
Like it takes so little when we be authentic and show up. It's like Brene Brown talks about it, and she calls it the arena. It's stepping into the arena. When you step into the arena, you know what? Yeah, you might be seen, and when you're seen, you can start to shed those layers so the essence of who you are can start to emerge. It's like, where in the world can we step into our arena, which is the most authentic version of ourselves? And everything that we feel pain, discomfort, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually from is an absence of that authenticity and vulnerability, which for me is authentic power.
Mm.
True power is being authentic and vulnerable,
Oh,
connected, being whole. That's what being powerful is. It's not this thing that one thinks they ought to be out there in the arena. It's like really like ripping, you and I know we rip it open, rip that heart open and to truly be seen. And just what's the one step
nice.
that we could do? What's the one thing we could do right now? What can we say? Who can we be? How can we show up? What's one little thing we can do right now in this moment?
Mm. Oh, wow. We could just erase everything else and just use this one last 3 minute, 5 minute share as the essence of the podcast. Like, there's the nugget, right?
Yeah.
The old Chinese proverb of relax, attention is who you think you should be, relaxation is who you are.
Yes.
And the place that I was going, where part of where I was going when Sukhi was sharing it is what is the stuff that we're hiding from? Or
Mm-hmm.
that we're using to hide because of the pains, the traumas, the shit that we've been through in this
Yeah.
life. And therefore we don't show up, right? We're putting on the mask to the world.
Yeah.
You can't live. That's existence.
Yes.
That's existence at no matter what or who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And having a PhD in the early part of my life of doing that, I can attest to it. So that gift, this arena, right? stepping in. And it's a courageous act. It's a courageous act to walk in and go, hey, let me start peeling this shit open and quit hiding from it.
Yeah,
Right. And that requires healing and oftentimes support. Right. So definitely find the
absolutely.
proper environment to do the work, but do the work, right? Because you deserve it. And the world is still waiting for you to show up authentically, right? Because that's what we need
Yeah.
is more willingness of humans to quit being human doings and be human beings, right?
Yes.
Show up in our essence of who we be, not what we've been conditioned to think who we are supposed to show up as.
Right.
Yeah, unplug from the indoctrination.
Yes.
Yeah, set yourself free.
I love that. Human beings. I mean, that's who we are. It's who we're being, which that comes back to it's not what you're doing, it's where you are within yourself while you're doing what you're doing, which is being. Who are you being? And the fastest way, I'm at an age where people in my age cohort, they start to go through these crises because they're doing they're doing in here what they're doing out there. They're
Mm.
not being. And eloquently, that's called a midlife crisis because it's been years and decades of stacking that. And it's like things got to change because it's like, well, is this it? House, car, white picket fence, like that's it, dog. I'm like, well, it's not my
I've
life,
checked off
but
the boxes and I'm still not
yeah, I
happy.
check all the boxes, but still not feeling the love. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Human being. Start being.
Yeah, and so here's another on the same exact piece, right? So we've all been conditioned, or most of humanity has been conditioned in this equation, which is have, do, be, right? That whole
Mm,
so in order to I've got to have these things so I can do
yeah,
these things to eventually be this thing, whatever that is, success or happy or whatever the end. And that's just one. It doesn't happen, as Suki just pointed out, and it's bass
yeah,
backwards.
it
Flip the
is.
equation. Be. And then in that, it'll show you what actions are necessary. And then you'll end up having the thing but it's the
Yeah,
being that's the
yeah.
essential equation, right? Flip it.
I wrote a book, God, we're going back now, over a decade ago. And there's a chapter in there that talks about be, do, have.
Mm,
Yeah,
hmm
yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so this, there was a nugget you just shared. uh, uh, and well, there's a bunch of nuggets, but there's a piece of me is like, oh, I'll pull that back in for the listening audience, right? Um, oh, that's what it was. It was the autonomy, right? And that's the biggest piece that, because of the conditioning that most humans, and I say humans, because
Hmm.
we've been indoctrinated, um, that we don't have domain over this life, let alone this temple, right? And so one, it's a lie, right? Quit listening to the lie and
Hmm.
start remembering the truth. And the truth is, you are the creator of your life, and
Hmm.
you have full dominion, right? Hence this podcast, right? Tao living. So it's a double play on words, which is Tao is the way, yet TAO is an acronym, the art of living, right?
Right.
Well, how do we do that? Well, we can't do it unconsciously. We can't do it on
Yes.
autopilot. We can't do it from a place of indoctrination or stuck in the matrix, to use that phrase,
Yeah.
right? And so, ladies and gentlemen, what this conversation about is unplug from the matrix, right? Unplug from the indoctrination to remember who you be, and then
Mm.
what's real for you. Like, really, without getting too bonkers, if you just simply go back and, well, I was born into a family, I was given a name, I was told how to behave, I was told what manners were, I was told how, what school to go to, what religion to believe in. And I'm
Mm.
not saying any of those were right or wrong, but I never made a choice on any of those in a conscious, earthly reality.
Yeah.
I know I signed up for them, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
So not until eventually do we start questioning any and all of those.
Hmm.
Are they in alignment with who I am? Or am I living someone else's life out, right?
Mm.
A beautiful book. Matter of fact, I just shared a social quote this morning, which is Bonnie Ware wrote this book called The Five Regrets of the Dying, right? Hospice nurse working with all these
Right.
beautiful, beautiful people making their transition. And she was watching, hence the top 5 regrets. And number one was, I wished I would have lived a life true to myself, not of what others wanted or expected of me. And
Right.
unfortunately, that's how most people transition, right? At the end of
It
their life, they're
is.
going, shit,
Yeah.
I didn't live my life.
Yeah.
And well, let's eradicate that, right? We can take that regret off the table by showing up and live your life, but you've got to do the work to discover what is your life. Who are
Yeah.
you, right? What brings you alive?
Yes. Absolutely. I love that. And it's, with being around people who have transition, they don't talk about the home they lived in. They don't talk about,
My
like,
IRA, how
like
did my 401k do?
exactly the what the business, the car, the vacations, none of that. It all comes back to, it's always a conversation around love and connection.
Connection.
It all comes back to that connection, that love, and we have the opportunity to do that. And like you said, like the art of living, I call this the mind body temple.
Mm, mm,
It's a temple.
mm.
And like a temple, a sacred temple, I spent time in India, I spent time in Asia being around different temples. And if you just took a step back and saw how these temples were nurtured, loved, cared for by the people, because they're hundreds of years old, but they're like pristine, pristine. I remember going to India and seeing the Golden Temple multiple times, and it's been there, I mean, for so long, yet it's a pristine temple. And the same way that these temples are taken care of and loved and supported, this mind body is a temple that needs to be supported, needs to be taken care of. It's a use it or lose it system. It really is.
Mhm.
Whatever we cultivate, whatever we nurture, that expression, our attention, our awareness, our biology, our cardiovascular system, our consciousness, the more we start using it and cultivate it and directing our energy and attention, the more greatness emerges through. I always say it's like this mind body temple, it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle for me. And if I don't take care of it, where am I going to live? And how am I going to journey through the adventures of this fabric of life?
Mm.
That's the piece there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So just like you, the essence of my body of work, the art of living, which is when you remember that you're the driver, not the vehicle, right?
Yeah.
You can walk your
Yes.
life in trust. And
Yes.
that's a big part is
Yes.
people remember this is, this is a sacred temple, but most people treat it like a barn, not a temple, right?
Yes.
And so even on that note, like some practical things as we come to close, because I know you've got a
Yeah.
lot of things to tap into. As you were just talking about, and I remember I tripped out into Bali, one of our trips, and happened to be there during one of the festivals.
Yeah.
And there's massive amounts of temples in this small area,
Yeah.
varying sizes. But what's neat is the entire culture. So in the same way, in the sense of the respect and taking care of the temple, no doubt. But what was really cool was not just the temples. I can't remember if it was every 3 years, whatever the time frame was. Everybody in the entire village takes all of their belongings out of their house and then repaints, redoes, and puts stuff back completely differently
Oh, wow.
to cause a pattern interrupt, to have a different relationship to their environment, right? Instead of
Yeah.
getting stuck in well, this is how it is. And then I
Yeah.
behave this way because my environment is the same, therefore I'm going to show up the same, right?
Right.
And so they're aware enough to go, let's introduce something to break that, right? So
Right.
whatever the time frame people get to pick, right? So,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, the reason I'm bringing that to light now is this is a temple. But what are you doing on a regular basis? One, to clear house, like the beautiful
Yeah.
places of, you can use seasonal changes. Like, hey, let's pay attention, right? I need to really focus on seasonal changes to do some cool stuff for my system to help it adapt, to grow and evolve during these times. Whatever triggers that you want to use to go, hey, right? Let alone your daily work. But what
Right.
else are you doing to respect and honor the temple, right? So the big three, like, so breath, brain, body.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, mindful what you put in here, right? And so I'm pointing
Yeah.
to my head, my temples, right? For the listening audience, and heart, right? Mindful, especially what you put in here, what you allow in here. And then
Yeah.
of course, like, that opening your face, like, what do you put in there, right?
Yeah.
And so those are simple things. People, like you talked about, it's not complicated. Like, look, ladies and gentlemen, you eat anyways. Why not eat good stuff?
Yeah.
You're eating anyways. Eat
Hmm.
good shit. That's not a really hard, complex concept.
Yeah.
If you're going to think, why not choose good thoughts?
Yeah.
You're thinking anyways, unless you're not and somebody else is thinking for you. You've already given up your life. Right. And so it's not, you don't need a degree in physics in order to take care of your temple.
You don't. And the piece that I'll add with that, I have a 9-year-old daughter now, and her name's Indira. And she asks, can I go see? She goes, and we don't have a lot of technology. There's not a lot of, movie. They go to Waldorf, etc. So, um, but some of her friends, older, that don't go to her school, they're like, oh, they've seen movies like Avatar. And she's like, can I see Avatar? And I'm like, fortunately, hon, it's really not appropriate for where you are to watch that movie. And she's like, well, why? I go, because, sweetheart, once you see and hear something, it's very difficult to unsee and undo it. And I just want to be a sacred gatekeeper of what you hear, what you see, and the thoughts in your mind. And I invite you to trust daddy on this one.
Mm.
And that's what I'll say for all of you out there. It's like you said, to be the sacred gatekeeper.
Mm.
And I know, I haven't asked you this, but I know, like, we don't watch TV, we don't watch the news,
Don't have
because
one.
yeah, like, we are sacred gatekeepers of what comes in here. So that's my way of saying, what's the kryptonite in your life?
Nice.
What's the kryptonite in your life? What's the kryptonite that will hijack, what's in here? So the first easiest step is, let's start removing some of that kryptonite from your life, because then you need less willpower to actually do what you said to do, because you're not putting the input to hijack your nervous system, your perceptual lens of reality, from this fear construct that's out there. That would be my big piece to add to that as well.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's so, as you do with your tribe and your the people you love and serve, for sure. That's a big part of mine, which is, I call it managing your environment, right?
Yes.
Manage your environment, because it's up to you. It is your environment. Quit turning it over to someone else, and quit being a victim of blaming other people, right?
Yeah.
So that simple place of scanning your environment, that includes people. So if you've got people in your environment that aren't conducive to who you be,
Yeah.
move them out, right? Have the courage and respect for yourself and them
Yeah.
to like unplug from that,
Yes.
and be it, so whatever that is, right? If it's technologies in the sense of TVs or your phone, 24/7, that's why they made it, so you can be available for them to indoctrinate you, right?
Yes.
Versus delete the apps you don't want and use the shit, right? So just like the mind's a great tool, but it's a crappy master.
Yes.
So when most people, right, that I find, they have let their mind run them, right? So it's like being on the back of a horse going for a ride,
Right.
versus it's a tool. It's
Yeah.
your mind, right?
Yeah.
Listen when right now, I'm speaking to the audience, not you, right? So when the person says, "Well, my mind," like, listen right there. You've already given yourself the information. If it's your mind, well, who are you? That means the mind, right, belongs to you. You are not your mind. So get
Right.
it under control, or let go of the reins and watch your life go wreak into havoc, right? Anyway, so yeah, 100%, right? Manage your environment, people, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, brother, yeah, man, I love being in your presence. I love what you're up to.
Thank you.
And of course,
Yeah.
who you be, right? Thank you for what you have been for decades, and what will continue as you walk this earth, bringing to the earth and the people of the earth for the remembrance and the skills and the gifts and the tools for them to be able to keep living life as it was meant
Thank
to be
you.
lived, right?
I feel that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that, Lou. Thank you.
And so, in closing, one, is there anything else you'd like to, drop a bomb with a love bomb with the audience? Because I was going to wrap with, and then please, I know you have something you'd like to gift them and share them so they can continue on their journey.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, is regardless of what's happening in your life, regardless of the state of your mind and your body, just know that the most beautiful advanced technology does live within you, and you can start the shift, not today, but in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
in this moment.
Oh,
And we've talked about tools and strategies, but this moment is a new moment. This day is a new day. It's a new week, month, year, decade. You are the conscious creator. You have the capacity because you have this beautiful intelligence and life force within you. And you just need to cultivate and nurture it. And for that, I have this beautiful gift. I wrote an ebook. It's called The Healing Power of the Nervous System. It's short, sweet, to the point. Most importantly, it's going to give you hope in knowing that the future can be more aligned with who you authentically are, and some small steps that will begin the process of moving you that way.
beautiful. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that hyperlink will be in the show notes, right? So you can then simply access that, right? Click on the link, tap into the work, and definitely tap into Sukhi's world. Yeah. So,
Awesome.
my brother, thank you for your time. Thank you for who you be.
Thank
And
you.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into the TAO-Living Podcast, and help others. Like, share this, right? Share this so people can listen and remember, right? That's what it's here for. So, abundant blessings. Until next time, peace. Ciao.
Peace. Lots of love.
Thank you for tuning in to the TAO-Living Podcast, The Art of Living. Now go to loucorletto.com, LOUCORLETO.com, to receive your free training, the operator's manual for your vehicle. See, when you buy a phone, you get a manual. When you buy a car, you get a manual. When you entered your body, no manual. Let me teach you how it's really designed to work. Also, help me help others and share this podcast far and wide. And subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Until next time, abundant blessings.